Take me down to the paradise city where the grass is green and the girls are pretty. Oh, won't you please take me home? Welcome to the jungle. We got fun and games. Whoa, we shine the light. Down and loaded like a freight train. Flying like an aeroplane. Speeding like a space brain one more time tonight. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Welcome to the jungle. Watch it bring you to your knees. Take me down to the paradise city where the grass is green and the girls are pretty. Oh, won't you please take me home? I wanna go. I wanna know. Oh, won't you please take me home, baby?
What's going on, everybody? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the first installment of the DADS, Not Always on Wrestling, for good old 2022. I am the Renegade JJ Williams, He, of course, is the West Coast professor, Jeff Meacham. And if I'm talking to introduce it, that means only one thing. If you couldn't figure it out from the background, we're doing a non wrestling topic. As a matter of fact, we are here today to discuss our top 10 favorite Jim Carrey movies. Jim Carrey is turning 60, which, holy hell. To think that he was 15 years old when I was born, and my entire life existence, he's been around and a thing. It's just kind of mind boggling to me. Like, he was making movies, granted, made for TV in the early to mid 80s when I was hitting like 5, 6, 7, 10 years old. And he's consistently been in the mainstream, the public eye, even before, but especially since the 90s and in Living Color.
Yes.
Because you figure the 80s, man, he had Once Bitten. He was in Earth Girls Are Easy. He even had a couple of bit parts in Clint Eastwood movies.
Yeah.
You know, Jim Carrey goes back. And you can see from the collage behind us, there is an overabundance of Jim Carrey films to choose from.
Oh, yes.
That being said, I have a feeling, Meacham, that we're going to have a lot of the same movies on our list.
Probably.
The key is, where do they fall?
And the key to remember is he's turning 60 today. If he wasn't the man with the rubber face before, he certainly is now. He's 60 years old, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah.
Whew. God love him. But
so, Meacham, take it away for us. Let's see how your list begins.
I found myself, to be honest with you, a little perplexed at some of these. And I say that because I had trouble getting to 10 for some reason that I actually wanted on my top 10. As a matter of fact, number 10 is a documentary about a movie, to be honest with you. And number 9, I'm not overly fond of when you consider there's about 45 other versions of this story, but I enjoy it, and it's Jim Carrey, so we'll go with it. But number 10 is something that will come up in a couple weeks here when we do our celebrity moments in wrestling. That movie and his involvement was on my list. It's a documentary, Jim and Andy. Celebrity moments in wrestling. That movie and his involvement was on my list. It's a documentary, Jim and Andy, The Great Beyond, featuring a very special contractually obligated narration of Tony Clifton. He mentioned that Tony Clifton, excuse me. You gotta love that title. That's great stuff. But yeah, this is on Netflix a couple years ago now, and you can see the aging in Jim Carrey there. There's more salt and pepper in their beards than mine usually get when I get not to shaving for a while. But it's one of those where it is a documentary about the making of Man on the Moon and a lot of behind the scenes stuff, but it's still very much Jim and his characters kayfabing us like they did back in 1999, like Andy did back in the 70s and 80s, because that's how Jim Carrey in the Andy Kaufman world is. You never know when you're being bullshitted and when you're being real. And I love that. I love it as part of the movie. I love it as part of the documentary. I think that's a great touch. I love Man on the Moon, for the record. You will see that later on my list. But I love the behind the scenes stuff that even we didn't get to see in 99 on the DVD extras or whatever. And again, the fact that we found out we were being kayfabed again by Jerry Lawler and Andy Kaufman's actors. It's like, all right, Jerry, damn you, knock it off. But great documentary, a lot of great footage that we weren't privy to 20 years ago. Very, very cool to see that stuff come out and get showcased on Netflix. it's one of those where I used to work for Blockbuster, my first job, but I think Netflix is one of the greatest things that's ever happened in our generation. It's just there's so much different quality of content on there. You've got, made for Netflix series now and movies, and you've got stuff that we haven't seen that is on any other platform, and it's all great stuff. And this is definitely a highlight for me in recent Netflix years.
I completely co-sign with this. I contemplated putting this on my list. So it warms my heart that you would throw this on there. Like, I remember the first time I turned Netflix on and saw this as an option on there, I immediately pressed click.
Oh, yeah.
There was no more scrolling to see if there was anything better.
Nope.
Jim and Andy, documentary on Man on the Moon. Absolutely. I'm all in. I sat down and I watched that. And like you said, man, I smiled. I laughed. Hearing Jim talk about how he was wondering how he was going to do this, and he just felt Andy's presence tap him, saying, like, I got this, kid.
Yep.
And to this day, Jim still says that Andy's spirit, like, embodied him throughout the entire filming of the movie. And
yep.
Whether that part is kayfabe too or not, who will never know, because that just goes into what you believe. Do you believe in spirits or not? I don't personally, but I feel like I've had a moment where spirits were present.
Oh, yeah.
So who's to say that that's not what happened with Jim? The biggest takeaway I took away from this, though, was the one regret that Jim had. And that was the fact that he didn't resurrect Andy for the Great Beyond REM music video when they asked him to.
Right.
Because he had already moved past being Andy, and being Andy had taken such a toll on him physically, mentally, emotionally. He did not want to try to get back in that space, so he turned it down. But he says it in the documentary. That's his one regret, is that he did not do it for them. And that's the one thing I took away from this, is that even Hollywood celebrities like Jim Carrey do occasionally have regrets. Well done, sir.
Thank you.
Great way to kick off your list.
I appreciate that. Number 9, we're going to get a little controversial, probably between you and me more than anything else. I don't know why I can't find enough Jim Carrey movies to fill a full 10. I don't know why. Like I said, this one's only above the documentary because I wanted to have actual movies be up on the list as opposed to documentaries. So that's the only reason, for the record. I don't know. Like, I've seen this story so many times. I've seen this company do this story a couple different times besides this. It's not my favorite version, but Jim Carrey doing everything he did in this movie, as far as the motion capture and everything with what they did to create this and make this thing a reality, you have to applaud the effort. Again, we talk about it a lot at Christmas. When you get Mickey and Friends doing this thing in 30 minutes, like, do we really need a 2-hour animated movie? Really? But it's Jim Carrey basically pulling the Tom Hanks and Polar Express and doing every damn thing. And it's tremendous. He does a great job. And you've got Zemeckis at the director's chair, so you can't go wrong with that. You've got Robert Zemeckis and Jim Carrey together, which is, if you get Robert Zemeckis in the director's chair, you're going to get me in the seat. It's going to happen, obviously. So that's how it ties in. There you go. Perfect. I figured it out. Yay me. Jim Carrey's version of Disney's Christmas Carol, again, we've seen Mickey and Friends do it. We've seen the Muppets and Michael Caine do it. We've seen Captain Jean-Luc Picard do it. We've seen, Admiral Boom do it. Every damn buddy's been Scrooge or Bob Cratchit or whoever. But you know what? Everybody has a different take. Everybody has a different favorite. And I found enough to like about this version that it made my Jim Carrey list. And I guess that's better than nothing, right? I mean, I'm sure you can wax better proxy on it than I can. So,
You know, I honestly can't say a bad thing about this one because I still have not seen Jim Carrey's version of Christmas Carol.
oh wow, okay, well shoot, that
I
just
own it
blows my
over
theory
here
out of
in
the
my
water.
library, but I just have not sat through it yet because there are so many other versions that I prefer to watch that I just haven't made the effort to sit down and watch it yet.
I mean, it's one of those things where you very I thank you forever for this. You know, you had your week last year of you're gonna do the story that made the story, and then you're gonna have a week of the movie itself. Different versions. It's like, okay, I got 7, I'm good. I'm good to go. I don't need to add Jim Carrey's this year. I'll probably watch it this coming year. Just just December, just so I can have a variety. Because Lord knows we don't watch the same things every year, except for Miracle on 4th Street and It's a Wonderful Life. I'll watch those. And Santa Claus with Tim Allen.
And the whole reason I didn't put that movie, the Jim Carrey version, in there, which then of course had to be canceled because I canceled my show for a little bit.
Right.
But the whole reason I didn't put it in there was because I fully intend to do a month of Jim Carrey movies down the road.
Right.
As a featured actor. So I was like, well, I don't want to burn this in the Christmas month when I can save it for Jim Carrey month. It's the same reason why I didn't put his version of The Grinch in there, and I focused on the 2 animated versions because I wanted to save The Grinch for Jim Carrey month as well.
And again, this is not a knock on the actor. Obviously, we're showcasing him today, so I'm not trying to knock. I don't think he's had 30 where he's been either the guy or one of the guys. I don't think he's had that many movies, like honestly, because he doesn't do a whole lot each year because he makes so much bang over his buck every time. He doesn't have to do 3-4 movies a year. So, 30 in a 30-year career sounds about right for Jim Carrey these days. So, anyway. Number 8, we get back to the haha because I mean, this is just ridiculous. It's so ridiculous it actually got Steve Carell a starring role in a spinoff. That's how ridiculous this damn movie is. And Lord forgive me for saying Bruce's name in vain with saying damn. But yeah, again, you got Morgan Freeman as God, always a good thing. You got Jim Carrey being slapstick physical comedy, always a good thing. You got Jennifer Aniston's always a good thing in a featured role. It's everything you want in a that era comedy. You've got Jennifer Aniston, who was one of the featured 6. You've got Jim Carrey, who's the guy at the time. Again, Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman's going to document the documentary of my life. It's going to happen. I don't care what anybody says. It's going to happen. He's going to tell everybody my life story, and you're going to listen because it's Morgan Freeman. So I'm gonna make sure his head gets frozen with walls. That way he can actually talk during it because hopefully he dies before me. Good grief. He's old now. God love Morgan. But it's just one of those where the stars aligned, the heavens aligned, if you will, and it's just one of the damnedest things you'll ever see. If you've never seen Bruce Almighty, I can't recommend it enough. I don't usually recommend a whole lot of stuff like that because some of those are like they kind of generate toward the Adam Sandler version of funny, which is going to be my number 7, by the way. But this one's really, really quality. It's clever, and it's just flat out freaking funny. I love this movie. All right, number 7 is a guilty pleasure. A lot of people don't like this movie. I have loved it from the minute I saw it. I saw it in theaters. I had so much love for the potential of how good it could be. It's Jim Carrey, it's Renee Zellweger, and it's Jim Carrey again because it's me, myself, and Irene. It's basically your classic Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, but it's Jim Carrey. There you go. That's what this is.
That's all I have to say about that.
Right? It's one of those where if Tom Hanks isn't doing the classic movie, then it's gonna be Jim Carrey at this stage of it's one or the other for our generation. Tom Hanks is the greatest actor. Jim Carrey's like the classic, like insert ridiculously funny comedy here. But you know what? A lot of these, a few of my lists are not just straight up comedy. The documentary, Christmas Carol, those weren't straight up comedies. Bruce Almighty and Evan Almighty. And again, I'm one of the few people that doesn't find Steve Carell funny. I'm sorry if that offends people. Check off. We'll see you in 2 weeks, whatever. But the fact that Jim Carrey involving Steve Carell in this movie got me to want to watch the spinoff tells you everything. Because I'm not a Steve. I don't get The Office. I don't get it. I don't. So this is good, and it made Evan Almighty worth wanting to see. So divine intervention, if you will, to get me to be a Steve Carell fan for a moment. Not kind of Get Smart, because that shit was funny too. But that was more Dwayne being there. That's the reason I saw that movie. And this. So
Man.
All right, number 6 and 5 can go either way for me because they're both came out around the same time. They're both quintessential. They have to be on Jim Carrey list. Let's just go ahead and do it right now. Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, and The Mask. And again, what about When Nature Calls? Didn't like that one so much as the first one. When Nature Calls felt like it was okay, Pet Detective made us a shit ton of money. Can you do another one? Yeah, but it won't be as funny. Yeah, it's okay. We'll still make a ton of money. And it did. But it wasn't as good. Pet Detective is great. You've got, again, another. We need to get him and Lisa Kudrow doing a thing. I don't know if they have or not. We need to get him that he gets all three of them in a starring role with him because Courtney Cox, just on the cusp of starting Friends in a leading role here. You've got the Miami Dolphins and their kicker. God love him. Laces up, folks.
Laces out.
What's that?
Laces out.
Laces out. Whatever. Laces out. Very true. The fact that the detective, the kicker is the red herring, you pretty much know it's going to be a thing, but you don't want to believe it because she's so attractive. And it's like, you get the entire thing Ace goes through. You're like, oh no, what the hell?
Yep.
Yeah, just right through the uprights. Some more ways than one. Hoofa. Yeah. And then you've got The Mask. I mean, first of all, The Mask, Jim Carrey, this is really the one that made you realize how rubber his face is. Yes, he's wearing a mask as far as makeup goes, but Stanley himself had the face going all over the place too. And you really saw him come out of that role realizing that he could make his face go places that like your basic jaw structure should not be able to move. Yeah. And you make Cameron Diaz a player in this movie. She became a star in this movie. She went on to do, something about Mary and the other roles she did, Charlie's Angels, of course. But this movie, I mean, Cameron Diaz in one fell swoop here, as sexy as, here it is, fuck in this movie, and yet funnier than hell at the same time. She's great in this. I forget the actor who plays Stanley's best friend. Forgive me, sir. But his obsession with the mask, diving in at the very end because he couldn't believe that he was throwing it into the river. He was great. The guy that played Dorian Tyrell, the villain, was hysterically and just such a bastard. I love The Mask. I like The Mask better than Ace Ventura, which is why it's number 5 and not number 6, because I like The Mask better. But as a sports fan, as a football fan, Ace Ventura, Pet Detective is a great story within a story too, because you get the Miami Dolphins basically lampooning themselves, which is always good. Because they lampoon themselves anyway in real life now. Yeah. So yeah, Ace and Mask are right there with me, neck and neck for me. Number 4 is one that people, like, especially people in this house, they know when this movie's on. Curtain goes shut. I put headphones on, and there's just ridiculous laughter throughout the next hour and a half, 2 hours, depending if I watch on TV or on streaming. Because we as dads now have all been here, where we get caught in a moment of in perpetuity, and we feel like we want to take it back, and we just hope to God our kids don't wish we have to take it back. Like, having seen this movie so many times over the years, and now seeing it as a dad the last 13 years, I go, brother, I get you. I understand. It's like, you don't want to lie to your kids. You don't want to lie to your loved ones, but sometimes you just gotta, fiblet or white lie just to get through the freaking day, man. But Jim cannot tell a lie for 24 hours, and he is in agony of his fool. Just from the moment the first truth comes out. Was it good for you? I've had better. And the look on his face, he's like, I done stepped in it. And she throws him all across the floor out of that room. Like, bye-bye. And just his whole interactions with everybody throughout the rest of the movie is just ridiculous. And again, I forget her name. I'm so sorry. She's a great actress. The one that plays her secretary. The one that's also Mrs. Doubtfire. She is just great in this. Everybody's great in this movie. I love everybody in this. I love and again, Jennifer Tilly. Let's not sell her short at all, because she is a great, what a shock, slutty vamp type character. Gee, she's kind of overselling for Jennifer, right? Love you, Jennifer. Just so good. And what's really great about this is it ends up being heartwarming and sweet, because he's in the courtroom and he's having to defend this horrible person, and he gets her off on a technicality, and then she thinks she's going to go for sole custody because she can win with him as her lawyer, and you see the truth come out in him, and he's like, you're horrible, and I'm horrible for defending you. Like, it's just like one of those like moments of zen that a character gets. It's just like, I'm a piece of shit, and I've been a piece of shit, not trying to be. Like, that's a hard place for. I've been there. It's a hard place for people to go to, where you realize how much of a piece of garbage you are, and you're not even trying. It's like, great stuff. And then the whole thing at the airport where he's chasing him down in the freaking the roaming stairs, which 2020 post 9/11, that isn't happening, ladies and gentlemen. This movie very much dates itself. It is a 1996 movie, because you ain't seen somebody hijack the rolling stairs and running down the fairway chasing a plane. That's called terrorism, y'all. That shit ain't going down now. That's kind of shit to get you held up at the airport for 6 hours because people is stupid. What happened back then too, but nowadays it's a little more crazy.
Because they found lotion on your puppet.
Exactly. Jesus. All right.
No.
I know this. So number 3 ties into number 10. Man on the Moon. I mean, this is the first movie I saw Jim do that really made me realize he was more than just an actor, more than just a comedic personality that could occasionally do a dramatic role. Because he, like he says in the documentary, and he claims, the spirit of Andy Kaufman went into him and helped direct him through this process. And Man on the Moon is so wonderful on so many levels. As a fan, as I became a fan of Andy's work, watching the Comedy Central stuff, watching Taxi and reruns on, as you said, Nick at Night, back in the day, just seeing all that unfold and seeing, watching the old Memphis wrestling footage and watching him do the Tony Clifton act, and watching Bob Zammuta do the Tony Clifton act on actual tape, and then watching Paul Giamatti, who we talked about Paul last year when we did our Saving Mr. Banks Renegades review episode with Mikey, you and I. And, one of the rare times you don't find Paul Giamatti a complete piece of trash. which is always nice because I love Paul as an actor. He's great. He's a carny. He's a fool. Like he's a liar, but he's not a piece of shit, which is nice. Because Bob Zmuda was very much a carny, very much gave everybody like Andy did. So, and I love the scene at the end of Man of the Moon where Tony Cliff is on stage and he's doing his thing, and everybody thinks it's Andy or thinks it's Bob because Andy's passed away, and they pan to the crowd and Bob Zmuda's out there. It's like, oh, okay. And they end on the shot of the little neon outline of Andy. That's Milos Forman's one of Milos Forman's best works as a director. Great cast. I mean, we talked about earlier. You know, the WWF crew was there, and you know, Courtney Love, who was not getting any love from any damn buddy in 1999, did a great job as Lynn. You know, I found it funny that the entire Taxi cast came back as themselves, but Danny DeVito played George Shapiro. I was like, and the fact that they played themselves and didn't de-age themselves in the process, but Danny DeVito can't play Louis De Palma's. Can't play Danny DeVito as Louis De Palma. I thought that was weird. Even Letterman showed up in '82 looking like 1999 Letterman with the gray hair, like post-heart attack or whatever. I was like, okay. But I love. This is my favorite. Probably my favorite. Well, because it is part comedy. It's my favorite blended Jim Carrey movie. There we go. Hybrid Jim Carrey movie. There we go. Number 2 should be no surprise to anybody that knows me and knows my love of at least the first 3 movies in this saga. And if you can't figure it out, it's his involvement with the Bat. That's it, baby. Batman Forever, number 2. Granted, it's not a Jim Carrey movie in the truest sense. He is a part of the ensemble, if you will. But Jim Carrey as the Riddler, even if they just had Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face in this, I don't think it works near as well as having Two-Face with the Riddler. And if anybody could not necessarily outdo, because you and I will both agree, I don't think anybody could ever outdo Frank Gorshin. But if anybody could come close, especially in the 90s, it would be Jim Carrey. They talked about it for years that Rob Williams was petitioning to be that role, and I think it would have been great. I don't think it would have been as epic without Jim. And I think he did a great job playing the, for lack of a better term, jilted lover type Edward Nygma, because he was very much obsessed with Bruce Wayne. And it sent him over the Joker's thing. All it takes is one bad day. Edward was on the cusp of insanity. And then the shit hit the fan. So all it takes is one bad moment, and he's literally throwing his executive out the window and making cracks about it in the process. So he's definitely a comedic villain already. So I love this. I love they included him in this. I think that this was both the best and the worst thing. I say best because having the two villain front definitely continued on from the greatness that was Batman Returns. But I felt like they had to continue the 2-man front, and we got Arnold as Mr. Freeze, which was what it was. And again, Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy. I'll take that in the bag of chips every day of the week, twice on Sunday. But Arnold was just so campy that I think Arnold felt like he had to out-comedic Jim and Tommy Lee, and it's like, no, Arnold, you're an action badass. Be the badass. And I think that Schumacher felt like they had to out-comedic Jim. It's like, you're not going to out-comedic Jim Carrey in the 90s, folks. Move on. Do something else. And I still say that's the reason why it got so over campy that they went, okay, Batman Triumphant's done. Shelve that shit for a decade. So Jim Carrey was the best thing that happened to Batman and the worst thing, and that's okay, because he's still funnier than shit as the Riddler, and I love it. Number one is going to be a polarizing pick because it's my favorite Jim Carrey movie. It's not, people will consider what at that point anyway. Nowadays, it's more accepted as okay, this is definitely his wheelhouse. But in 1990, I think it was 98 when this came out, not so much. I absolutely love the Truman Show. I love everything about it. I love the idea of it. I love the idea of this being the forefront to Mikey's favorite show on CBS. I love it being a commentary on society and on reality TV's place in society. I love that everybody in here that you expect to be the pillar is not. I mean, it's God. Everything about this is so off. You've got a famous babyface in this role as the director, the creator of the world, who we usually see this gentleman in positive roles, heroic roles, and he's just a narcissistic, crazy person. Like he's batshit that he thinks that this is all okay. That they literally adopted this baby as a corporation and built a world around him. I love the idea of Lauren being on the outside and having this guerrilla campaign to try to free Truman from his cage. Again, as I go older, I appreciate more about it. You know, the whole killing the dad off thing and bringing him back to try to suppress Truman's desire to escape, and then he does anyway. And just, you know, it's so funny because, you know, as a fan of professional wrestling, as long as I've been watching for 30 years now, 31 years now, God almighty, I'm getting old. To have that kind of reality be the only thing you know, and it keeps breaking down more and more around you as the day goes on, as the weeks go on, and you just don't know what to do. His story, his entire arc and the whole movie is great. I love the little things. I love his wife, the woman playing his wife in his life, just completely cracking up under the pressure of the craziness. I love the brief moments of comedy that Jim throws in there when he's being dramatic, you know, where he's doing the whole roundabout thing in the car, and he's completely Jim Carrey there for a moment, and just it's like watching a reality TV show become a documentary, become real life, like within about 20 minutes of the whole process where they're trying to get out of town and the fire breaks out and the nuclear power plant. It just, everything about this movie is a quintessential movie. It makes me flipping cry like a baby when he walks out that door and says that final good afternoon, good evening, good night, and just walks down the stairs. And you see Lauren get up to run to her door to go meet him, and we don't get shit after that. We have no idea how that works out, but we believe it's okay. And that's the important thing, because we believe that when that movie signs off, that all is right in Truman's world, and that's all we need to know. We don't need a Truman Show 2 or 3 or 20. We know that Truman Burbank, or whatever he's going to get to call himself in his post life, is going to be okay. And I think that's a great story for anybody in any era.
Okay. Well done, sir. Well done. Like I figured, there are quite a few that we share. There are 4 that you had that I do not have.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So almost half, but not quite half.
All right.
So, you know, I will say before we throw the commercial here, I did not have Jim and Andy.
Okay.
I did not have The Christmas Carol.
Wow. Okay. Oh, because you haven't seen it.
Because I haven't seen it.
Right.
I did not have Me, Myself, and Irene.
That doesn't surprise me.
Never really was a fan of it. I watched it once at a girlfriend's insistence, And one of those things where you're kind of, when you're forced to watch a movie, you don't really feel it. I just wasn't feeling it. Maybe if I went back now and rewatched it on my own terms, maybe I'd feel differently.
Right.
But the time that I saw it, I just wasn't feeling it. And then Liar Liar, I do not have.
Really?
Never seen it.
Jesus. All right. Well,
I've seen bits and pieces of it,
yeah.
but I've never seen it start to finish, so I couldn't.
Well, if you have TBS access, you've seen it at least once.
I know, probably the same way you saw Elf the first time.
Right.
I've probably seen it, just not in its correct order.
Yeah, the Bollywood break room was our friend at equipment time. But I will say this. We've got a lot of great stuff coming up next month also. So before we get to your list, let's go ahead and check out exactly what's coming up
next week as well as next month here on the Jeff Meacham Network.
We'll be right back. Like I done said, February is going to be a fun month. We've got your top 10, for lack of a better term, chick flicks. Basically, the movies you can take your girl to, but you'll still enjoy. For me personally,
Yes.
is how I did my list on that one.
Yes.
And then
some may call them rom-coms, some call them chick flicks,
right.
but same kind of, idea feel there, because not all of them are going to be comedies.
No.
Some of them are definitely a little bit heavier on the drama side, but they're still movies that you enjoy.
But we still got to get through the rest of January. And with that being said, like you said before the break, we've got a lot of similarities, but I am definitely curious where you placed the ones I placed and what didn't make my list and made yours. So, my friend, have at it.
Well, like I said before the break, there are 4 complete differences. None of the ones that we share are in the same spot.
Nice. See, I like that.
So it's a completely different jumbled list, and
beautiful.
It's all about subjectivity, like we love to say. It's all about preference. I think you'll be surprised where some of these fall on my list.
Okay.
Kicking it off for me is one that's a little bit controversial, in all honesty, because I have crapped on this film quite a bit over the years, but at the same time, you cannot deny Jim's performance in it, And the fact that you can barely tell it is Jim. How the Grinch Stole
Oh,
Christmas. You know, I've often given this movie crap, much like I gave the versions of A Christmas Carol crap when I was younger.
right.
Dr. Seuss did this in like 25 minutes. Why am I watching this 2+ hour movie about the Grinch? And more specifically, why are you giving me all of this backstory to make the Grinch a sympathetic creature? Y'all are some bullies. Y'all who villains are who villains. You guys have treated the Grinch when he was a kid like absolute shit. And you wonder why he messes with you now. He has gotten his revenge on y'all at the time that you love and appreciate the most. And I hate that they made him sympathetic in that way. I loved it so much more when the Grinch was just mean and miserable and curmudgeonly and ornery just for no reason. It made his redemption at the end so much better.
I liken your dislike of this to two particular movies in a major franchise that you despise. They didn't need to give Michael Myers a backstory. He was much better as just the shape. And Rob Zombie then went, no, there's a backstory. He's sympathetic. And I know you hate those movies. So I can definitely see why you would hate this. And for the record, I'm not a fan of Jim Carrey's Grinch either. But it is still a technical masterpiece as far as the effects and the makeup. It's great. But yeah, giving the Grinch a backstory is bullshit.
In recent years, I have grown to enjoy this movie a little bit more than I did when it first came out. I am a lot more tolerant of it these days, which is why I went ahead and included it on my list at the number 10 spot. You know, if I still felt the same way about it that I did when I was younger, it would not have made the list.
Right, of course.
But time heals all wounds, so to speak. And the fact that this movie is 21 years old, which let's think about that for a minute. This movie can go into a bar and drink. Okay.
You know,
but again, you look at the makeup there, you look at Jim in that makeup, you cannot tell that is Jim Carrey.
no.
It is so brilliantly done.
Yep.
And Jim is straight up Jim. He is amazing in the movie. You can't take away anything from his performance.
No.
Number 10, Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
The makeup in this is what makes the Grinches at Universal Studios work so well because you can't tell. It's beautiful.
Number 9 for me is a movie that I don't think anybody else has really heard of. I even mentioned it to you off camera and you were like, okay.
Right.
It's a made for TV movie. I want to say it came out in 1991 or 92. So early in living color years for Jim.
Okay.
It's called Doing Time on Maple Drive. I remember seeing this movie because, I mean, it's got James Sicking, the dad from Doogie Howser, not pictured there. It's got Lori Loughlin, Aunt Becky from Full House, and it's got Jim Carrey, the funny man from In Living Color. What was there about this movie to make me not want to see it as a kid growing up in the early 90s? Seriously. But then you watch it, and it's not a comedy. This is the first time I saw Jim do something serious. He plays a recovering alcoholic throughout the film. Very dysfunctional, very short-tempered, everything you would think of that a recovering addict goes through. Jim is portraying that in this movie, and it is so well done that it really, as much as I was already loving him on In Living Color, it really kind of made me take notice of this guy. Like, this guy is going to have a future if he gets some more solid movie roles. And as we all know, he sure as shit did.
Kind of avoid laughing in that graphic there. It looked like Aunt Becky just came off the farm for real. Like she ain't even of age yet. Good lordy.
Right?
Baby Aunt Becky.
Number 8 is going to surprise you as to where it's placed on my list, because knowing me, you would think it would be a hell of a lot higher. Batman Forever.
Okay, you got my attention now. Wow.
Honestly, it falls in 8 for one very major reason that you touched on your list. This isn't Jim's movie.
Right.
It's an ensemble.
Right.
That Jim is a part of. A major part of.
Yes.
But this is not Jim's movie. He steals so much of the movie and the scenes that he's in, but this is a Val Kilmer, Chris O'Donnell product. So that is the only reason why it falls so low on my list. As much as I love the Riddler, as much as I love Jim as the Riddler, as much as I love every one of those actors in those roles, Val as Batman notwithstanding, great Bruce Wayne, horrible Batman.
Yep.
But Chris O'Donnell, perfect for Robin. Nicole Kidman is Chase Meridian. I can't use the F word. You already used it for Cameron Diaz, but I mean, double here.
Goddamn.
Tommy Lee Jones is Two-Face, even though he hated working with Jim. Their chemistry is undeniable, and it was a different side of Tommy Lee Jones than we were used to. And Jim being Jim, man. I mean, you touched on how Robin Williams wanted to do it. Would it have been as great? Would it have been as epic? I don't know. I think we have the problem of the fact that Jim was so good, we can't imagine anybody else in the role.
Yeah.
But you got to figure this was just a couple years removed from Robin as the Genie.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Robin was still on top of the world. He so could have hit that home run that Jim hit. And then we'd be asking, would Jim in the role have been as epic, as great? Because it would have had the years behind it. So it's really just one of those, almost dogmatic questions where hindsight's a mother effer.
Yes.
Because what if?
Do me a favor, put that guy back up one more time for me, if you can, the Batman. I just noticed this. Here we are, 30 or 26 years later almost? 27 almost. Do the character images get smaller as they go up the screen? I mean, look, Batman's big. It's Batman, of course. Jim Carrey looks bigger than Tommy's image. Tommy's looks bigger than Nicole's image, and Nicole's looks bigger than Chris O'Donnell's. Or am I just seeing things?
I think you're seeing things.
Okay, because I would understand why that would be the case, because you figure Jim Carrey's Jim Carrey in 95, and as you go up that list, it's less and less of a, at that moment anyway, box office so I would get it, but yeah, just to my eyes playing tricks on me.
Number 7 on my list is another one that did not appear on yours.
Okay.
And I'm sure you can wax philosophical for me as to why you didn't make the list. Could just be as simple as you haven't seen it. But it came out right in that run from Ace Ventura, The Mask, Dumb and Dumber.
Okay.
This is one of those films that when I was a teenager, man, I wore this VHS out.
Onion skin thin, baby.
These two were so great together. I just love watching that movie. You know, you want to hear the most annoying sound in the world? Complete ad lib. Him singing Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Complete ad lib.
Yep.
Got left in the movie. You know, these just two bumbling idiots. Very much reminiscent to me in hindsight of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. You've just got these two bumbling idiots who are trying to fix something that they don't really know how they're going to do it or even why they want to do it. They just get this itch to do it, and antics ensue.
So I mentioned earlier, Me, Myself, and Irene's a guilty pleasure. It almost hits the point of I can't stand it because it's Adam Sandler, like stupid funny. Like I love Adam, but some of the movies are just like they're stupid funny. Like I can't process how I can't get over the dumb to get to the funny. I can't effing stand Dumb and Dumber. I've never liked it. I've watched it. I've tried to. I watched it once the whole way through it. I'm like, all right, I done did it. Leave me alone. I get people that want like, no, I don't want to watch this. Like, I know, like it is dumb and it gets dumber. And just no, I can't. Like that's why it's one of those. Like it's so stupid funny that it's too stupid to be funny for me. And I know people love Jim and Jeff, and they're hysterical. And I think both those guys, if they just dialed it back maybe to like a 9 or an 8, I'd be okay. But it's just so far past 10 that it's like, okay, I'm good. Thanks. And again, the fact that they made a prequel out of it and it was so shitty that they had to make a sequel with these two yahoos in it is like, ugh. But again, I will never crap on Jim's entire filmography nor Jeff's because they're both freaking amazing. And again, this is one of their iconic movies, both of them, and I get that. It's just it's not my glass of brandy, brother. It's just not.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, but you can't, in my opinion, you can't go wrong with this because this is part of that early to mid 90s Jim Carrey Grand Slam. Like you got Ace Ventura, The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, Batman Forever, Home Run. Like it's hard to argue with that, you know.
Yeah, it's like I can skip over this and go to Liar Liar, which you said you didn't enjoy. So you know, I never seen. Sorry, excuse me. So it's just one of those like I can skip over that and go to Liar Liar and then get on to Truman Show and Man on the Moon and be like, okay.
Number 6 for me was your number 8.
Oh, okay.
Bruce Almighty.
This is such good shit.
Like you said, man, you hit all the high points for this one. I mean, you can't go wrong with Morgan Freeman as God. You know, and like you said, if I had to have my life narrated, Morgan Freeman would do the majority of it, but when it got to like the R-rated stuff, Sam Jackson would take over.
There you go. I agree with that.
That way he could use the MFer liberally and just, you would expect it from Sam Jackson.
Yeah, and I think both of us could definitely get with that because like this point's our lives where we go, and then this motherfucker he done did this shit.
But I mean, like you said, I also have never been the biggest Steve Carell fan.
No.
Aside from like 40-Year-Old Virgin and maybe a couple of his other roles, Anchorman, which I'm not a big Will Ferrell fan either, but the supporting cast in that one really came together to make an amazing film. Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
They all worked together so well. So that's why I give credit in that one. And then when my girlfriend was here visiting the last time, we actually stumbled upon the tail end of Dinner for Schmucks on TV with Steve Carell and Paul Rudd and Jeff Dunham in it as well. And I own it in my collection, but I had never watched it. I specifically bought it because Dunham was in it.
Right.
But I had never watched it, and we're sitting there watching it. I'm like, this is pretty funny. I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch this start to finish.
Yeah, it's one of those like
So,
lost treasure type things.
so there's a few roles out there that I do enjoy Steve Carell in, just like there's a few things out there that I do enjoy Will Ferrell in, but I've never really been the biggest fan of theirs.
Right.
This movie, like you said, is one of the exceptions, though, because Jim just made him so funny that, yeah, when you heard about Evan Almighty, you went out to see it because you almost wanted to see if Bruce was going to make a cameo.
Right.
And I actually heard that Bruce did shoot a scene. Jim shot a scene as Bruce, but it was deleted.
Right. Well,
because they didn't want to take away from Steve's film.
Right, and they already had Morgan in there as it is, which was having Morgan Freeman in your movie doing a cameo as God is enough. So yeah.
Bruce Almighty, though, number 6.
Great stuff.
My number 5 was your number 1.
Whoa, I'm surprised to see it on your list. I'm not gonna lie.
A lot of the same stuff that you said, man. I enjoy the crap out of the Truman Show.
Yep.
And I frequently would use good morning. In case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Yes.
For quite a while after that movie came out. I don't use it as much anymore, but I do occasionally when I can find the right moment to interject it there. But like you said, I mean, this movie was calling out reality television when reality television was still basically limited to the real world and road rules. Like, we had not had Survivor, Big Brother, The Amazing Race, all those things that came in the early to mid 2000s, American Idol, The Voice,
romance shows.
Yeah, The Bachelor.
Romance.
We didn't have all that stuff yet, and the Truman Show was already calling it out. Yeah. It was so ahead of its time. Could you imagine if that movie came out in like 2003, 2004, in the midst of the reality craze? How much bigger it would have been than it already was?
I don't know if it would have got put through at that point because there was so much influence from the reality TV genre of the world. They would be like, oh no, can't do that. But like you said, the fact that they made Ed Harris essentially a bad human being, that takes effort. Because that dude is usually like the most solid dude in the movie. And he's just a crazy son of a bitch with this whole creating the world thing as Christoph. He's crazy. And again, you have another role where Paul Giamatti's on a cockface. I love that. Again, he's sitting there going, nope, I'm not doing, no, I'm not going to capsize the boat, you crazy person. You do it.
See, and I have to look this up while you're talking here because you're talking about how Ed Harris isn't usually a cockface.
Right.
I don't know what movies you watch him in, dude, because most of the movies I have seen him in, he has been a cockface.
Real? Okay, well.
You figure The Rock.
I've still never seen The Rock to this day.
You figure The Truman Show.
Mm-hmm.
You figure, I'm trying to see what other ones. National Treasure, Book of Secrets.
But Blame Your Ex. I still haven't seen part 2 yet. I've only seen the first one.
But I mean, just those in particular, most of the other ones it's been a while since I've seen or I haven't seen them enough. But those 3, I know I have seen him in, and he's just a dick. And even if I remember correctly, there's even moments in Apollo 13 where he's not exactly the nicest man. I mean, he's nicer than he normally is, but like there's even a few moments in that where he's kind of like, okay, there's the Ed Harris I know and love.
I'm just trying to think of why. Maybe I'm projecting his filmography onto somebody else because I remember him always being a cool guy, but maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. Anyway, but yeah, it was just I guess it's more because like I think of him as like this. I don't know if he's a fatherly figure because that's I don't know, but I don't know. You kind of caught me here. I'm not sure.
It's all good. That's why I'm the movie guy and you're the wrestling guy.
Exactly. That's it, man. I'm just looking here.
And granted, I mean, I know you're scrolling through his filmography now. There's a lot of movies that I didn't touch on. I only named off like 3, but like those are the ones that I know him the best from.
Right.
So it's like, from what I've seen, you know.
I guess I'm just, like I said. I guess for some reason I always pictured Ed Harris as like the old fatherly figure, but I look at filmography. I'm like, I have the wrong guy clearly.
It happens, man.
But anyway, it was nice to see Paul Giamatti not be a dick. How about that? There we go. We'll go with that.
Yeah, you know, I'll accept that one. You know, it's nice to see another one where Giamatti isn't a prick.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's totally going along with the boss and trying to, be, fall in line with the boss guy. But like, Ed Harris done told him to capsize the boat, and he's like, "No, you're gonna kill it. That's freaking wrong." Jesus, Ed, what the hell? So yeah, that part I like that.
Number 4 for me is the last one of mine that did not appear on your list.
Oh, okay, well that's good.
And it's quite simply the number 23.
Again, never seen it, so that's why.
This was just an amazing film to me. I remember when it first came out, I was kind of like, whatever.
Right.
But then I got the movie, I got a hold of it, and I watched it because it's Jim Carrey. And, much like we say about Tom Hanks, I have yet to see a bad Jim Carrey movie.
Right.
I've seen ones that I didn't enjoy as much, me, myself, and Irene, for you, Dumb and Dumber. But I have yet to see one that I could just sit there and be like, you know what? That was not even worth the film it was printed on. So I gave this movie a chance, and holy hell, did it suck me into the world. I mean, he's this dog catcher, and it's his birthday, and he gets bit by this dog, and he ends up meeting up with his wife, and he discovers this single copy, no real cover to it, book called The Number 23. And he starts reading and he starts realizing all the similarities in this book to his life.
That's always creepy.
And, you haven't seen it, so I won't spoiler it, but you get deeper. Okay, you're saying, okay, you get deeper into this book and you discover that not only is this book about him, but it was written by him.
Whoa, that's a freaking crazy thing.
That an instance had happened earlier pre the movie, and he kind of had amnesia.
What?
He did something. He wrote this book as like his confession. And through therapy or whatever, like he does not remember any of this happening.
That's crazy.
So it's almost like he's rediscovering this bad thing that he did through reading this book.
That's crazy.
It's just the twists in it are so great. And the way the number 23 keeps popping up in everything. Phone numbers, addresses, the numbers of stairs to lead to where this body is hidden. Like everything comes up to 23. It's such a great twist and turn movie. Like I said, I got sucked into it. And aside from my number 1, which we'll get to in a minute, it's probably my favorite, like, serious role of Jim's, because while there is a little bit of comedy to it, it's way more of like a drama thriller than it is a comedy.
And see, I always like when your typecast folks go off type and
Yes,
hit it out
and
of the
he
park.
totally did that with this movie.
Yeah, he did. From what you're telling me, anyway. So
I highly recommend you look into it and watch it. Add it to your list, brother.
now, like I said, we keep doing these non-wrestling shows with movies and TV shows involved, and both of us kept adding shit to our list. We're gonna be watching movies like into the third life we have after this one at this point.
Pretty much.
Thank God for streaming devices.
Number 3 and 2 were your number 6 and 5, except I have them flip flopped. I've got The Mask at number 3 and Ace Ventura: Pet Detective at number 2.
Right on.
You know, going back to The Mask, you know, you touched on it. You pretty much hit all the high points. Cameron Diaz, Jim Carrey, you know, the mask of low key,
right,
is the mask that he wears and gains these powers. Like, who would have thought how funny it would be to watch that back in retrospect with the Thor movies being what they are today,
yep,
the MCU being what it is today, and low key getting his own spin-off show on Disney Plus, to come back and realize that it's the mask of Loki that turns him into this trickster, this prankster,
got a mischief
comic book character. Holy hell, what a revelation that is, you know, these days. Because you hear them say that in the movie back in '94, and it's like a throwaway line. But you rewatch that in the MCU era, and automatically you have images of Tom Hiddleston.
Yeah, and again, full disclosure, we're pre-taping, but finally getting through the MCU at the end of last year and watching those develop and seeing Loki's story essentially along with Thor's develop, it was like, and then you go back and watch The Mask and you go, okay, I guess, like he didn't turn into Tom Hiddleston, and okay, sure, but yeah, it is very funny to look back now and go, all right, I got you.
And then Ace Ventura. I mean, you've got Dan Marino in there, like you said, with the Dolphins making fun of themselves. You've got Tone Loc.
Oh yeah.
You know, Mr. Funky Cole Medina, Mr. Wild Thing. You know, this movie started the trend of Jim Carrey actually performing on the soundtracks as well.
Yes.
Because for the song Aces in the House, which ran through the credits, Jim does some ad-libs in the intro there. Tone, put that big ass size 13 on and kick it for the homies. And then from there, you had Cuban Pete on The Mask. You had him singing Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and Dumb and Dumber. You had Somebody to Love in The Cable Guy, which does get an honorable mention, does not make my list. Okay. But, you know, Ace Ventura: Pet Detective is another one of those that it could almost be akin to your Pinocchio. I did not wear it out to where it snapped, but I would come home from school each day and I would watch the video of Ace Ventura. Like every single day. HDS, sir, and how are you this afternoon? All righty then. I've got a package for you. Sounds broken. Most likely, sir, but I'll bet it was something nice, though. You know, like I could just do the whole movie back when this came out. Line for line.
And let me just throw it out there again. Not only did the VHS, the tape snap, it snapped 3 different copies. Oh, yeah. I done broke that Pinocchio shit 3 times.
Yeah. Mine didn't break. It didn't even get so bad as the Tombstone one did, to where they would shoot guns and the tape would jump. I watched the crap out of this.
You never told me that before. That's fucking great. Sorry for the F word again, y'all. That's great.
And you figure it's a Western, so how much are guns being shot? Seriously. But if
you all had those VHSs where you tape out TVs throughout all the action shit. That's great. Oh my
but if
god.
Batman
I didn't mean to cut
Forever
you off.
was number 8 for me, if Ace Ventura, which I watched that excessively, is number 2, there can only be number 1.
Oh my god in heaven, Jay.
And we touched on it a bit when we talked about the non-WrestleMania celebrity moments.
Ah, yes.
You mentioned it on your show. I mean, how could I not put it number 1? The movie that I was in.
Right? I done
Again,
in this.
Granted, you don't see me. I'm John Cena. You can't see me in this.
That's right.
But I'm in it.
You're there.
I was there. Me and Stat Boy were there when those scenes were filmed. I mean, you mentioned it so beautifully. This was the perfect blend movie of drama and comedy.
Yep.
You know, there were funny moments in Truman Show, but it was way more of a drama.
Yes.
There were some comedy moments in the number 23, but it was way more of a drama thriller.
Oh yeah.
You know, Doing Time on Maple Drive is strictly drama.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's a made-for-TV movie. It damn near may as well have been an ABC after-school special. That's how drama-heavy it was.
Right.
But this one, you know, to take the title of another biopic, this one walked the line so beautifully between comedy and drama.
Yep.
And the embodiment of Andy shone through Jim's performance.
Yes.
If there was ever a movie that I feel he should have gotten an Oscar for, it's this one right here. And that's why it makes my number 1 spot.
Yeah. The fact that neither this one nor Truman Show got him an Oscar or the movie itself for Best Picture, I just go, what are y'all watching at that damn Academy?
Yeah.
Like, I get it, but because I mean, you know, yeah, remember that was when Titanic was winning every damn thing, you know, twice for some reason. But I understand. Doesn't mean I have to agree, because I think both those movies are Oscar worthy on multiple fronts.
Completely agree. And I do want to give a quick shout out here, since we threw it out on Twitter to get some thoughts on Jim Carrey movies. We only got one reply. Big shout out to Big Baller G.
Yeah, buddy.
For claiming Ace Ventura as his favorite Jim Carrey movie.
Not a bad way to go. I mean, it made both our lists, so it's got to be one of the good ones, right?
Yeah, definitely. But for those of you out there that didn't respond to our Twitter, what are your favorite Jim Carrey movies? Let us know. If you're watching the premiere, leave your thoughts and comments over there next to Jeff. If you're watching on demand later in the day, leave your thoughts and comments down here. I got an even better question. How shocked are y'all, the viewing public, that Batman Forever fell so low on my list? Because I know I surprised the crap out of this man.
You definitely did.
But having seen the rest of my list, I think now you can understand why it came in where it came in.
You know what shocked me more about your list, besides other than Batman, because Batman was definitely a shocker. The fact that you haven't seen the Jim Carrey Christmas special, because you've seen every other version of that freaking story. It's been made, printed, documented, you know, written in stone, chiseled out of freaking marble, some shit, but not this one. Just it befuddles my Christmas brain. But again, we only in January. He's got 11 months to get there and watch this shit. So there you go.
Yes.
But before we get to December, we got to get through February. And as I said, as we saw during the break, again, if you're a primarily Attitude / Ruthless Aggression era fan of WWF, WWE, you're going to love our early February show, because it is the greatest matches in No Way Out history. And I dare say No Way Out was the perfect pay-per-view bridge between the Rumble and WrestleMania for all those years. just a great show.
I agree with that.
I think we've both been to a No Way Out at some point or another.
I have not.
Okay, I'm thinking I'm gonna do Q Crew then, because you know what? Now I say that, I haven't been one either. I know Aaron and the gang went to a one before we officially hooked up as a team, and I know they went to another one, and I think they went to the one in Vegas that the Big Show returned and caused the ruckus with Money Mayweather.
I was at a Judgment Day. I was at Mania.
Right.
I was at a couple of SummerSlams.
Okay.
That's it as far as WWE pay-per-views.
And those are all
Everything else
Staples
was
Center.
either Raws or SmackDowns.
Right. Well, I mean, as we found out during the panel in November, you were at the Ponda Center when The Rock returned, which was a huge moment, and I still get goosies watching that shit back. So, but No Way Out, I felt, was one of those where if we're gonna go ahead and do 12 a year, you might as well stack that February show, because it's going to be the bridge between the Rumble Mania, which are pillars of the big four. I mean, there's only four, so there's four pillars. So, and Rumble directly leads into Mania. They are a direct road. It's a road WrestleMania. So you have to have a good middle ground, and No Way Out was always great. So I can't wait to cover that. And again, we get into February 18th. It's just after Valentine's Day, so have your girl pop on the channel and have her watch us completely dissect the movie she loves or loves to watch with you, or whatever works for you.
That
Again,
you love
I
to
love
watch
these movies
with
that I
her.
picked. I know he loves movies he picked. So
Call them
it'll
chick
be,
flicks,
it'll be
call
a
them
fun month,
rom-coms.
as we always do. And then we'll get the open mic nights in between. God, the fact that an open mic night takes place on my late grandfather's birthday, February 11th, is going to be shenanigans, because if anybody could do open mic night, it's my father and my grandfather. So I'm just going to have fun on that day just because.
And then, I mean, we've got a lot in store for the rest of the year. We've already got it pretty much booked. We're going to be talking about top 10 movie/TV death scenes. We're going to be talking about our top 10 baseball players. We're going to be talking about the top 10 Cena matches. We're going to talk about the top 10 Will Smith/Fresh Prince songs, not movies, but songs, both from his solo career as Will Smith and from his time with DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, which did produce 5 albums.
That will be my most challenging show of the year by far, and I'm not even going to front on that.
My list is already done.
I'm sure it is.
We're going to be talking about the icon, the showstopper, and you know what? We might just bring Stat Boy in on that one too, because
we have to.
The Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, has always been his boy. Yep. We're going to be talking about
that show's on his birthday, so on Sean's birthday. So and it's funny you mentioned the death scenes in movies and TV. I picked that topic for that date because it is the anniversary of WCW's final pay-per-view prior to their death. So it does tie into wrestling, believe it or not. And it's one of those where when you compile your list and you're not 100% sure of the impact of it, and then you watch the scene and you have to spend the first 15 minutes of your list compiling, wiping off your keyboard from the tears and the vomit because you're so messed up by watching that shit again. That's going to be a heavy show.
We're going to talk about one of the nicest guys in Hollywood. We're going to do a top 10 Keanu Reeves movies. And you want controversial. This one might be the most controversial show we're going to do. Top 10 women to never be champion.
There are a lot of females that have come through professional wrestling that did not hold the championship. Some sure as shit didn't deserve it, but a lot of them did, and they never got it, and it was bullcrap. So, and of course, as we've been talking about, the all month so far, every time we get to it, we bring it up. Top 10 incarnations of the Four Horsemen, and the Roma version's not the worst.
So that's just a little taste of what's to come here in 2022 from the dads. Is there something you'd like us to talk about? A superstar you want us to feature? Talk about their best matches? Let us know. You can either leave comments, again, if you're watching live over there next to Jeff, if you're watching via Memorex underneath us, or you can tweet us at ROWJJ Williams, at _ Jeff Meacham. Give us ideas for topics because we're plowing through this full force, baby. We're not stopping. Can't
No.
stop, won't stop.
And at this point, there's a reason this show is on Friday. We ain't got shit to do. Our kids ain't here. And for the most part, we ain't got no job. So we got nothing but time. So you provide the topic, we will dissect it like a freaking frog in biology, y'all, for real. So,
Yep. So until next month, I have been the Renegade JJ Williams. He has been the West Coast Professor Jeff Meacham. And we will see you guys next time.